Thanks for hitting play. This isn't really a weekend rewind. It was only from yesterday, so it hasn't been released on any podcast. It's my regular Talk the Walk live stream I have with the rock star of consulting, Alan Weiss. Alan's written over 60 books on consulting. Just a really interesting guy. He wasn't scared to face things on and say what's on his mind. Today we talk about that phrase, the customer is always right. And we also challenge and question some of the common things around business and life, like those sayings that may not be true. Enjoy the episode.
Talk the walk with every sip and laugh. Coffee's the fuel, martini's the craft. Conversations swirling in the cool night air. Talk the walk, we're going somewhere.
Good morning, Alan.
Good evening, Liam.
I thought if I'm at applause music, it just doesn't sound right without...
Now I feel one.
I do that every morning. I make sure I play that applause music when I drink my coffee ever since starting this. But how has your week been?
Well, my week has been fine. We were supposed to be in Florida, and the weather in Florida was worse than it was in Rhode Island. They kept canceling the flight, so we decided to hell with it. And my clients were very understanding, and they agreed to reschedule. So we had a staycation. I had nothing scheduled. And so, we acted like two slugs. It was very good.
Did you? Because that's really cool that you had a staycation at home, but I'm always tempted to fix something or clean something or, throw some things out. But you actually just relaxed.
Yeah, we relaxed. I do things around the house that need to be done because I like doing it. And, I built some models and pursued my hobbies, took the dogs for coffee. So it was nice. I didn't tell my trainer, so I didn't go to work out either.
So it definitely felt like a staycation then. Oh my goodness. Alan, you're a man of integrity, so it's nice to hear that you do some of these things from time to time. I've just come back from Thailand. It's my sort of first official week back, so just trying to get my head into the game. What are your tips for onboarding yourself after a vacation where you've just had a really great time, you've been very relaxed? How do you get back into it?
Well, I heard some time ago that the ideal vacation is you love to go to the new place and then you also love to go home again. And I think that you need to acclimate on both ends. So if I'm traveling somewhat, like say to California from here, I'll give myself a day. If I'm traveling to you in Australia, I give myself 2 days. And I do the same thing when I come home. So I don't do any business planning. I don't do anything that requires me to be, sharp and responsive. So I managed to unpack and, and take it easy. But I think that's very important for your mental health. If you relax on a vacation, you sort of ruin it by coming back and jumping right into work.
Yeah. And you're right about even just the suitcase just sitting there. So the first thing you have to do is get rid of that, just get rid of the contents. But some of the artifacts from the suitcase haven't been put away. And it's it's been a week now. It's come on, Leanne. Finish the job.
Well, and high tech can ruin your vacation. We have these stupid Apple, whatever they are, these little round things, and AirTags or something. And it will say to me in the back of the limo, "Your luggage is no longer with you." Well, that's because the guy put it in the trunk. So just tell me if my luggage is with someone else. Don't tell me that it's not necessarily near me.
That's very true. Every time I left the hotel, I'd be a kilometer away and it would say, yeah, your luggage is no longer with you. It was kind of annoying. But look, I guess for the upside, if things go missing, it's pretty good. If you're here live, let us know where you're joining us from. Let us know how your week was as well. And you're welcome to share your comments or questions in chat. We'd love to have a conversation with you. So today's topic, Alan, we always sort of throw around a few different ideas. And this one, when I read it, I was like, oh, that's an interesting one to dive into. The customer isn't always right, and maybe businessisms that aren't necessarily true 100% of the time. What's the go with this one?
Well, if you start with this one, people started to realize the customer wasn't always right when the customer returned clothing which had perspiration marks under the sleeves, right? And so they wore it to a party or something, and now they're trying to return it. And stores like, I guess, Nordstrom's in the United States here, they had a return policy where they take anything back, even if it wasn't even bought there. And then finally, the investors revolted and they did away with that policy. But somebody brought up an interesting thing on social media, which is a rarity. And they said, well, it's not that the customer's always right, but the customer's always right when it comes to taste. And that is blatantly false because If the customer says, well, this is my taste, and you sell that customer something that they want, but they look terrible in, and they go out in public and people think, I'm not giving them this job, I'm not inviting them to the party, you haven't done that customer a service. And so responding to want is a commodity. What you have to say is, try this on, I believe you look much better, this is what you need. So satisfying a need is value. Satisfying a want, just a commodity.
Yeah, that's a really good point there. And I think I remember that story. I think I read about it in Chicken Soup for the Soul, that one about returning items that don't even belong to the store. And I mean, that was a thing in the 1980s. Can't even imagine that happening now. But there's some places, like in some industries and some companies, that are known for this. Like the Ritz-Carlton, as an example, they seem to have superior customer service. And
they changed their policy, though.
Did they? Tell me more.
And, in the back, in the hallways where the staff goes in Ritz-Carlton, it said, "We are ladies and gentlemen serving ladies and gentlemen." And every Ritz-Carlton employee had a $2,500 authority to please. Yeah. They ended that because they were giving away too much. And what happened is, a customer who was upset with something, who would have been perfectly happy with a free drink or a free meal, they were giving 2 free room nights to in a Ritz-Carlton. And so the $2,500 was killing them. So they did away with it.
Oh, cool. Well, thank you for fact checking us on this Talk the Walk. I'd like to say hello to Dr. Michelle Roberthan. I met Michelle in Sonoma, California, and she's joining us from Lafayette, Louisiana. Her week has been productive and meaningful. Lovely to hear that, Michelle. And let us know if you have any questions. Have you been to Louisiana, Alan? You've been to all of the states apart from one.
I've only not been to North Dakota. I'm afraid to go to North Dakota. But I have been to Louisiana many times. They had some, dreadful, horrible things happen lately down there in New Orleans, which is regrettable. But the Super Bowl will be there. And, of course, Lafayette, where she comes from, is named after Lafayette, who fought in the American Revolution. And after we won our independence, he came back subsequent and was hailed as a hero.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. Lafayette stood out for me as an Australian because of Hamilton. Right, they've got some songs that feature Lafayette. Don't you love pop culture that teaches you history? Let's talk about other business phrases. I want to ask you about this one. I mean, we hear this all the time. Work smarter, not harder. What do you agree with that?
Well, work smarter is great. And, working smarter than hard is great. I have no quarrel with that one. Mm-hmm. I'll give you one that I hate, though, which is servant leadership. I mean, servant leadership is meaningless. We don't want servants in leadership. And if you think about the great leaders, Gerstner, who took over IBM, Fred Smith at FedEx, Herb Kelleher at Southwest Air. I'm talking about American companies here. I'm sure you can name some in Australia. Jack Welch, when he ran GE. These were not servant leaders. These were tough people who knew how to make tough decisions. Mm-hmm. And this aspect that a leader's job is to make everybody happy and avoid toxic workplaces and make sure everybody's singing Kumbaya, it's ridiculous. In 35 years consulting, whatever it's been, I've never heard a board of directors or executives say, let's raise our servant leadership quotient here.
I've never heard that phrase either. But there is a lot of, you're right, like in this day and age now, maybe it's swung a different way because of the release. I've read a lot of Trump's policies actually that have come out. So maybe it's kind of swing, the pendulum's going back, but around, it really is around making employees happy, particularly in a point of time in where it's difficult to attract talent or even have loyalty with employees as well. So is it still going back to what you're saying about being tough, making right decisions, attracting right people because you're creating a really high performance culture where people that aren't performing are out?
Yeah, I think that if you want a positive workplace, you have to be accountable. You have to produce. You can't whine. You can't go crying for help every time, you don't get a certain assignment or somebody spills water on your desk, And sometimes the boss will yell. It doesn't mean it's a hostile work environment. The boss will say, you've been late 3 times in a row. I'm very unhappy. Okay, boss deserves to say that. And so I'm not denying that there are bad bosses. People don't leave organizations. They leave bad bosses. Fair enough. But stop telling me you're going to design what your environment should look like. It's called work for a purpose.
Oh, interesting. But I mean, it's very different for us as solopreneurs. I mean, I look at your amazing workspace and all the beautiful photos you've got, and I'm sure Royce is in the room as well. So this is the difference, isn't it, when we are our own bosses?
Yeah, but the problem is, Leanne, you've heard me say this, is that a lot of us who become solopreneurs now have worse bosses.
Yes. I really should give myself a performance rating as a manager.
Take your own survey.
Oh my gosh, it would be brutal. Okay. Michelle loves Hamilton. It's great to have you here. Let us know if you have any questions and let us know where you're joining us from as well.
Michelle, I just want to say, so if you loved Hamilton, if it plays wherever in Louisiana, go see In the Heights. It was Miranda's first play, and it's even better than Hamilton. Okay, so that's my gift to you.
Yeah, was that a movie as well? I heard that was a movie.
No, it wasn't as good. The play In the Heights, Miranda comes out there himself, and he raps for 2 minutes. And I said to my wife, "Why are we here?" And 4 minutes later, I said, "This is one of the greatest things I've ever seen."
Really?
Yeah, because I never knew that rap had the emotional intensity to tell a story, and it does.
Mm. Oh wow! I love, that's really, really fascinating. So thanks for sharing that. We could talk about. We should do a whole live stream on musicals and getting your tips for Broadway. What about this one? What gets measured gets managed.
Well, this one is close. In other words, we all need metrics, but the trouble here with this phrase is that some people are measuring the wrong thing. Some people are managing the wrong thing. For example, Leanne, they're measuring task and not result. And the symbol of that today, the ridiculous symbol today, is the U.S. government and Elon Musk and others ordering people back to their desks, ordering people back to the workplace. That's a task. If they're creating the results you need at home, leave them the hell there. It's less expensive for the company, and they can take care of what? Childcare. They can take care of health problems, take care of family. So the problem is that we tend to measure the wrong things at times, and we don't get the results that we want. Therefore,
yeah, that one was interesting. There was the New South Wales government brought in that same policy around you must come in mandating time in the office, and the reason they justified this was because it is a job of a government official or employee to boost the economy. So they have to come in and use the restaurants in the central business district. That's part of being a public servant.
And it also it forces them to spend more of their paycheck and have less take-home pay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and use the roads which the infrastructure is not even set up for anyway. So we could go on about this, but just on this point around the US federal government and their remote work policy. I mean, that's going to have an impact on that. That's pretty much given permission to any private employer to do the same thing.
Well, a private employer can do whatever the hell a private employer wants anyway. It doesn't need government blessing to tell people you got to be in the workplace. However, I think that if you're an intelligent private employer, you're probably going to have a mix. I mean, some customer interfacing people, if you're in a call center, can be anywhere. It doesn't matter. Like an airline reservations person, could be anywhere. In fact, I was talking to somebody in Louisiana the other day. However, if you're a retail salesperson in a store, you've got to be there talking to the customer. If you're an airline gate agent or a TSA, security person, you have to be there talking to the customer. So these things all depend. And we should be making intelligent judgments about that. But since we don't trust our judgment, we make rules.
Yeah. Oh, that's that's a really good phrase that we could capture. We're talking about phrases that don't really land. That landed for me. And also we're talking about forcing people back to the office. It's happening in the New Zealand public sector as well. Yeah. That's what I mean. With Trump bringing in the policy around DEI and then Meta actually already, you know what I mean? It kind of is a knock-on effect, gives that permission. What other... I've got lots of different phrases I'd love you to destroy or get your take on, but do you have any others that you can?
I'll give you one. Our driving force, our purpose in life is to make a profit. And that's not true. It's never true. It hasn't been true since the old conglomerates. And the last of the conglomerates in the U.S. was GE, which is now in very bad shape. But Jack Welch said when he ran the place, he had a TV station, he had an appliance company, they made locomotives, they had NBC television, they had a credit company, nothing to do with each other. And he said, you're one or two in every market or we get rid of you. That was the strategy. Now, that's profit driven. However, most organizations are driven by something else and make a profit doing that. So Merck, for example, a pharmaceutical company, their mission is to bring the greatest in scientific research against the greatest areas of human health need. In so doing, they make a profit. But they're not going to make a profit, or they would buy Hertz rental car because they can make a profit with Hertz, and it was up for sale on several occasions. But, if I had suggested that to Merck, they would have thrown me out the window. It's preposterous. So stop telling me you're profit-driven. And a lot of people make that mistake because they start with the bottom line instead of starting with what their mission is and a contribution to the environment.
It's a difficult one, like even for people that like our peers. I'm calling myself your peer, which is really kind of brave of me, but like, thank you. But for our fellow consultants, because it's all about like revenue targets, and it is driven from the wrong direction. As in, like, rather you always say what's in the client's best interest as like the guiding question versus how do I make another 200K this year?
Yeah, that's right. You know my community really well. And a lot of people will say to me, how can I make more money? And I say to them, don't think that way. Ask yourself, how can you provide more value? And if you ask yourself how you can provide more value, you'll do something of worth to others and you will make more money. George Merck said, do good and good will follow. If you just ask yourself, how can I make more money? You'll join some pyramid marketing scheme, which is illegal, unethical, and disgusting, right? Other than that, I don't feel strongly about it.
Yeah. Before we continue this topic, I want to ask you a question based on what you've been releasing this week, which is an AI version of you.
Alan Intelligence, AI.
Alan Agent, is it?
Alan Intelligence.
Alan Intelligence.
AI. Work with me here, Leanne. Come on.
I'm still waking up. It's too smart for me already. So this is like, I'm imagining it's this tool that you've got where you've got a huge amount of body of work that you've uploaded to that. People can ask it questions and things like that. As I was seeing that, I'm like, super clever. This is amazing. And I know you've had a really terrific response to that. What is the future of consultants? If we're all about intellect, challenging people and brainstorming, which is a lot of what the AI agents are doing, you've outsourced your brain to this. What's the future of us and our careers?
Oh, the future's brilliant for us because look, it's high tech, high touch. That's what James Nesbitt wrote about in 1982 in Megatrends. High tech, high touch. So you see, for example, healthcare now going toward telehealth. You see AI making diagnoses better than doctors do, and so forth. That's very true. But in consulting, it's a little bit different because all of my IP is out there in the 60 books I've written and in the thousands of podcasts and videos and everything else I've done. But people still come to me to be coached because you don't learn to ski by reading a book. You're not going to learn to ski with an AI thing on your shoulder feeding you stuff. You need a coach for certain things. So consulting will survive nicely if we adjust, if we adapt to the times. This is what Machiavelli said. He said, I've often reflected that the causes of success in people is their ability to match their manner to the times. And consequently, all I'm doing is saying, look, here's an inexpensive way to do business with me, to learn things from me, and people will access this. They'll get a narrative back. They'll get sources. They can download things all on their own. For me, it's passive income. Hell, it'll be passive income for my kids after I'm dealing with same. So the future of consulting is not if we make these kind of adaptations and understand. It's not going to be so fine if we try to compete with AI rather than use AI.
Yeah. So it's like kind of a hybrid approach and a partnership there. But I think it's all about that brand that you talk about and that being quite strong as too. We've got some love that's happening in the chat as well. We've got a few sending love from Jessica, love from Lafayette and New Orleans, which is fantastic. So we've got people, a Louisiana vibe today, which is lovely.
Yeah,
is this your son? Jason Weiss is on the...
That's my son.
Is that a promise? I'm not too sure what you're referring to, Jason, but I'm sure your dad will give you a call after this. Okay. What about this is one this statement here, failure is not an option.
Yeah.
What do you think about that?
It's absurd because, of course, failure is an option. We learn from failure. I mean, if you're not failing, you're not trying, right? And so the key is, and I use this with people who have bad self-esteem who are afraid to talk to buyers. Unless you suffer defeats and setbacks and so forth, you're not going to learn sufficiently. If you try to protect yourself and only do what's ultimately safe, you won't learn a damn thing, I think Churchill said, Success is never final and failure is seldom fatal. It's courage that counts. And my next book that I'm writing for 2025 is called The Courage of Your Talent. And so you have to face up to the fact that, life involves setback. So you need to be resilient. But if you don't learn from setback, then you're in trouble.
Yeah. And I think maybe it goes back to what you said, the thing around what gets measured gets managed. What gets managed gets measured is sometimes when I've had a setback or a failure, I don't really, it's like, what is the thing that led to that failure? And sometimes it's like attribution theory. Was it me or was it the environment that was it the timing of something? Like it's really difficult to pick the part that you need to fix sometimes. I think there's a value of having people to talk to.
Well, that's right. You can't fix a problem unless you know the cause. And
that's
so
right, yeah.
If it wasn't you, trying to fix something in yourself is not going to solve the problem.
Yeah. But do you work with, there's a Jocko Willink book and he talks about extreme ownership. Have you heard of Jocko Willink? And it's just this thing that whatever happens, it's your fault. He's like former Navy SEAL. And I go that because I'm all about, personal accountability. And if it's meant to be, it's up to me, all that sort of stuff. And that can sometimes, I think, that can damage the confidence a little bit if you think it's up to, if it's just on you.
I was an instructor in the SEALs. Did you know that?
What?
No, I wasn't.
No, I did not. Okay.
Failure is always an option. And the key thing is to take accountability. Not to say it's my fault, but just take accountability for what you should be accountable for. And we too many people look to shift accountability elsewhere. It's a toxic workplace. My boss is no good. The fates are against me. I've seen people screaming at United Airlines desk agents because the plane was delayed by weather. Get a life.
Yeah. I love that. Okay, Jessica says, authenticity is the value. AI is not authentic. It is borrowed. Lean into authenticity. Jessica, that's great. Like, that's the reason why I'm doing my daily podcast is because I'm seeing all this content out there that's been mass produced. And the only thing that I can really do to compete against that is just be entirely human, do off the cuff episodes on my phone and just lean into that. So it's been pretty effective. People are enjoying that. And by the way, I'll replay today's live stream on that podcast tomorrow. So thanks for helping me get another day of content, Alan. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. I'm a servant leader.
You are a servant leader. What about this one? It's not personal. It's just business.
Yeah, right. That's a mafia phrase, right?
That is. Yeah.
That's a mob phrase. And too often it is personal.
It is personal.
Yeah.
Yes.
People want, look what Trump is doing now. You mentioned Trump before. This is not a political statement, but a lot of things he's doing now is retribution. He just took the security detail away from this General Miley, who used to be his chief of staff, but went behind Trump's back to do something. Trump is unhappy with him, called him a traitor. Now that Trump got elected, he just removed his security staff and took away his security clearance. And so that's retribution. That's personal, right? And we have to recognize that happens. I'm not approving of it. I'm saying that, but you have to face it. It does happen. And I think that people, though, who are driven by retribution, no matter who it is, are less effective at what they do because it's all self-centered and it's not outward-centered.
Yeah. Again, it's not about, yeah, you're right, of course. And I think it's difficult as well, like going back to us as business owners, if we're the business, it's kind of personal because it's like, there's no one else, and that's
when you're rejected.
Yeah.
When you're rejected, a proposal isn't accepted.
Yeah.
At this stage of the game for you, how do you feel about it?
Not as bad as I did initially. No way. Like initially it was like, like what's wrong? Again, what's wrong with me? Now I'm very philosophical and I actually try to seek out rejection, to be honest. Because I think the more you get rejected, honestly, the easier it does get. Like, and you build up your mechanisms for dealing with it.
That's right. I coach people to, when they fail at a proposal, to ask the prospect, please tell me what I could have done better to earn your business. And so that turns into a learning experience. And not all of them will share it, but about 50% will. And so you turn what was a rejection into a forward progress.
I've actually forgotten to do that. So thank you for sharing that on the call today. Do you have any more? Because I've got a few that we could go into, but I know you also prepared a list.
I'll give you one of mine, then we can take yours. I like this one. We're customer driven. I don't know what the hell that means, because customers can't drive your business. You have to tell customers what they need, because if you just respond to what customers say, you have people with different interests from you out there. Like, what does a customer want? Speed. A customer wants low prices. A customer wants X, Y, and Z. Not that that's unreasonable, but the fact is you have obligations to shareholders. You have obligations to employees. You have obligations to suppliers. If you're to small business and you have obligations to your family. And so you can be customer sensitive, but you can't be customer driven.
I really like that differentiation between the both as well. Because, it goes back to the Henry Ford thing. If you give people what and back to the first thing we spoke about, fulfilling wants versus needs, and also being an organization that actually predicts what's next and goes there, as opposed, skating towards the puck to where that's going. What about thinking outside the box?
Well, what do you think about that?
I mean, I like it, but then I think sometimes thinking inside the box for me is sometimes better, because I need forced constraints, right?
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm like. I'll just go, whoo, there is no box. There's no gravity.
You're like floating in space. My thing about thinking outside the box is to think about outside the box. You got to be outside the box. You can't be sitting in an office trying to think outside the box. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
So take yourself outside the box. I mean, we are not herd animals if we want to be entrepreneurial at all. And so you've got to get the hell outside the box. You got to get up on the hill where we have better sight and stay out of the herd. So I think that it's all theoretical if you try to think out of the box, but you yourself are in the box. If you want to make it real, get the hell out.
Yeah, my friend actually was on a text thread with a few friends, and we were all responding really quickly. And my friend was like, "Oh, what, aren't you working?" And then she posted a few hours later, and she's sitting by the pool. And I actually said to her, "That is work. Like, that is work for what we do." Like, and she's on a rooftop. She's got expansive views, and she was actually working. But I think, this goes back to another point we raised around, just because you're at a computer in your box, in the office, in the city, doesn't equal value.
But I have no problems taking calls on vacation, and my wife will usually come down at like 10. I've been there since 8. My wife will say, "Have you paid for the vacation yet?" Right? A guy calls me and he said, "What's that noise in the back?" I said, "Those are the breakers. They're about 20 yards away." He said, "What do you mean breakers?" I said, "The waves, the breakers." He said, "Alan, you're such a kidder. Where are you really?" Well, I'm sitting in St. Bart's on the ocean, right? So I told him, "Well, I'm in an office. I was just joking around." I don't care what he thinks, as long as we can get along and I can do what he needs and so forth. But how I feel, wealth is discretionary time. There's a saying that I think is very true. And the more discretionary time you have to do what you want, when you want, go where you want, when you want, that's what life is about.
Do you think, because I joked with my friends the other day that I said, like, I'm retiring. And then I thought, what is, retiring? I'm just trying to pronounce my R's for the US audience. Retiring. But that's my definition of retirement, is doing what you want when you want. Don't you think?
I think retiring is an artifact. I don't think it means anything, because you're going to retire at 65. The average age is 78 or 80 or whatever it is. I mean, what are you going to do? Tend some garden, for God's sake? I'm not saying you should stay at work, but what I am saying, you got to continue to contribute. And it's pretty clear, medically, psychologically, if you look at the literature, just as you exercise physically, which I do 3 days a week, to keep yourself in shape as you grow older, you've got to exercise your mind. And consequently, you have to be involved in things. You have to have opinions. You have to learn. So I think retirement tends to give people too much of an out, too much of an excuse. Well, I'm done with all that. Well, if you're done working on an assembly line, that makes a lot of sense. But mentor people, coach people, volunteer for something.
Yeah,
keep your mind in the game.
100%. Yeah, agree with that. Jason, I have a meeting in a couple minutes, so I have to drop off now. It should be noted that I grew up listening to him, and I still learn more and more every time I hear him talk. Don't tell him I said that. I don't want him getting a big head. That is lovely.
Love you, Jay. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, it's so nice. Okay, so Jason and others, it was so great having you. But all of Louisiana on this call today. If you'd like to join our next Talk the Walk, we are streaming live to you on LinkedIn and on YouTube. Your 12th of February, 4 p.m., my 13th of Feb. Any sort of parting messages, Alan, before we end the stream?
There's a famous phrase that says, don't believe everything you hear, even if I tell you. And so watch these myths that you hear and ask yourself if in life, in practicality, they're really true. Remember when we were told, don't go in the water within an hour after you eat, or you'll get cramps and drown.
Yeah, that's never happened. I love eating and swimming immediately. So, well, cheers to you. Thanks so much for today. And thank you for joining us on our live stream as well.
Thank you all.